What does a Roman warship look like? They've never built them before, so they cut down their trees, start gluing them together with pitch. These things are ugly, top heavy, and wobbly like a drunk in the Mediterranean Sea. And it looks like drunks are manning these ships, not sailors. They're actually farmers who've never seen any action like this in the sea. And they're seasick. They're vomiting over the rails, hanging off the side. But watch what happens when an iron beak, brand new invention, slaps down onto the enemy ship and clamps and makes this sea battle into a land battle. Rome does not lose land battles. It's 260 BC. Rome went from 0 warships to 120 in a short time, and this was to fight the greatest navy in the world. This lesson shows the cost, because if Romans push it too far, they face the wrath of Hannibal and his elephants. Very costly. I'm Mr. Hull, and this is Classical Kingdoms. Welcome to Classical Kingdoms, where history reveals truth and wisdom for your journey. We take a classical approach to history, structured, complete, grounded in what actually matters. And I've been teaching since the 90s about Hannibal, helping students, history buffs, and homeschool families understand not just what happened with these early Romans, but why it matters and how history helps us flourish. Understanding this situation, by the end of this lesson, you'll know that the Punic War helped transform Rome and the Mediterranean area, the little regional Italian city-state of Rome, becomes a superpower, and some would even say an empire, so that you can see the transformation that's coming at a great cost to the Romans, but it will help make Rome great. Let's begin. To get our bearings, the timeline is well past Cincinnatus. In lesson 45, we showed you this great Roman. Oh, if only we could have him now. It's nearly 200 years after that. Beautiful story of virtue. Cincinnatus was a dedicated public servant. Do we have him now? I don't think it'll work in this case. He was a local farmer who helped his people, and Rome was very small. But now, this campaign is going to last years, and it's not going to be local. People are going to go off to Africa. Africa is now the threat. It's Carthage. We already knew there was a curse, Dito's curse, from lesson 43. Here it is. You learned about Carthage way back in lesson 16. They are the trade monopoly, the purple people. They don't rotate leaders or hire mercenaries or act like Cincinnatus. They trade and they get rich. They don't have roads either. They own the waterways. They own the Mediterranean Sea. Dito's curse is now in play because this border dispute is because Rome has grown. They're trading and they're becoming rivals with the Carthaginians. The collision is about two powers, and only one can become the superpower. In 264 BC, Rome had just finished unifying Italy. The central part of Italy, across the Straits of Messina, less than 3 miles of water, was the next part of Italy, Sicily. I've been to Sicily. I've crossed that waterway. And you can see on this map how close everything is. So do you think Sicily should be Tunisia? That's what it is today. Do you think Sicily should be part of Africa? In ancient times, do you think Sicily should be part of Carthage? That's the fight. It's just an island. No, it's not just an island. Look at the strategic placement of it. It looks like a ball, kind of a flat football being kicked by the boot of Italy, but it is massive. It's huge for the strategic importance of it, because if you control Sicily, you will control the trade routes between Africa and Europe and Spain. And going all these directions, you'll control the grain supply, control the sea. So right now, Carthage controls it. 264 BC, Carthage has the finest navy in the world. Why? Because for over 1,000 years, they've been a monopoly. And Rome has no warships. Zero. What would they do with warships? Well, when they pick up a wrecked Carthaginian ship in the beach, they look at it. They reverse engineer it. What is reverse engineer? They take it apart, figure out what the plan was for it, and they start building. And it's 60 days of building, only 2 months. They made 120 warships. Unbelievable. Like, can this make you a naval engineering expert in just a moment? Like, take apart a ship that works well and copy it. Do people do that? Yes, all the time. And imagine you're a Roman senator. You've never built a ship in your life. Your entire civilization is just land, farming. I mean, Italy is spectacular. Why would you need to leave? The Senate votes. Let's go. Build a fleet. We're ready to leave. We're ready to control the seas. The result is actually very ugly. These ships are built from green wood. That's trees that were just cut down. Normally, you would dry the wood out for at least like a year. But green wood, and they're going to be glued together with pitch. That's like tar. That's like sap as best they can. These things are as good as they can be, top heavy. But this is the invention of the Corvus. It's one of my favorite turning points in history as an invention, because the Corvus clamps down. Like, who saw the Corvus coming? They should have known. It's 11 meters long. What is that? Like 35 feet? Enough of an iron spike as a beak to clamp and grab the enemy ship. When a Roman ship gets close enough, they can drop that bridge. The spike really smashes it, and the enemy deck is perfectly accessible. And by surprise, the Roman Marines will charge across that bridge. And what happens then? The sea battle becomes a land battle, and Rome never loses these. Carthage didn't know they had to be trained for this. The Battle of Mylae in 260 BC, Rome won its first naval victory. The Carthaginians are stunned. These amateurs, they just beat the professionals, the monopoly. And I'd have to ask my class at this point, is this a genius invention, or are these desperate people? Well, what would you say? Put it in the chat. What is your opinion at this point? Did the Romans get lucky with an invention? Is the ingenuity of the Romans, the determination, something that was coming? Because they've been around for a few hundred years. And by the way, click the like button and leave that comment, because the Corvus is a turning point, kind of like a gimmick, making the ship kind of unstable in rough seas. And it doesn't always go well. In 255 BC, a storm destroys nearly an entire Roman fleet. Maybe 100,000 men could have drowned. That's more casualties than most wars, even in today's lesson. But Rome keeps building. Rome keeps fighting. There's a lot of death coming. In the First Punic War by 241 BC, both sides have spent fortunes, financially destroyed. The Roman treasury is empty by this time. Now, wealthy citizens are donating their own money to fund one last fleet as they're desperate and an empty treasury. So in the Agates Islands, this battle that Rome fights, they defeat kind of the scrappy relief fleet of the Carthaginians, as both were kind of, maxed out. Carthage will surrender. What do they surrender? Peace terms show that Carthage has to get out of Sicily. Hey, Sicily is now Italian forever. Still is today. Well, I shouldn't say that. There are a lot of other wars and challenges for Sicily, but Carthage has to pay 3,200 talents. That is massive. Remember that 1 talent would pay for an entire warship for a month. And this is more than a fine. This is potentially civilization breaking. And it may motivate the Carthaginian leaders for a big revenge match with the young Hannibal Barca. So Carthage, just to even pay this, has to expand into Spain. And what do they? How do you get money back then? They have to mine silver just to pay the debt. And Rome uses silver bullion, or mostly bronze bullion. Bronze is kind of the main, but they don't really have coins yet. And they've been mostly isolated, so they don't use the Athenian money that everybody else uses, or the shekel. But it's the same kind of concept. They need the money in the form of precious metals. But it's humiliating, isn't it? That humiliation rises in the Barcid family. Barca. Hamilcar Barca was the dad. Hamilcar lost to the Romans, and he is never going to let that go. What do we see? A religious ritual coming that involves his 9-year-old son. Now, these are Canaanite gods like Baal, Hammon, Baal, Melkart, but they've come over to Carthage. And Baal Hammon, the supreme god of Carthage, is probably the one that demands this blood to appease him for this favor. The favor. What favor does Hamilcar want? He wants revenge. He wants the Romans to lose, and he's going to make it generational. Now, his 9-year-old son, Hannibal, is here. To be a part of this ritual, his father wants to instill on him at the highest level, it's a blood oath. This blood oath, what is the blood oath culture of these god worship, these Canaanite gods? Well, when Hannibal places his son in this religious ritual, he places his hand on his son's shoulder. He makes his son do this. He's making his 9-year-old son experience a living creature, whether it's an animal, a child, being brought forward and being cut open and bleeding. The blood that is shed is showing Hannibal the curse. The curse that will fall on Hannibal if he breaks the oath: never be a friend to the Romans. Hamilcar makes his son swear this oath of enmity, hatred for the Romans. It will become generational. And what happens if Hannibal breaks the oath, if he makes a treaty, if he makes peace? The blood. Only by the blood will Hannibal be paid to the gods. It will be Hannibal's curse. The blood will be shed from Hannibal this time, not just from this creature that we've cut open for this oath. Do not be a friend of the Romans. Never be a friend. The blood, and it's only by the blood that this will be paid if you break the promise, if you break the oath. And Hamilcar explains what the boy must now do with his life. Consider the impact on Hannibal in the future. What does Hannibal do? What lengths will he go in as he crosses the Alps, as he pursues the Romans? Will he ever break the oath? Will he ever have his blood spilled and paid as appeasement to the gods? Just finish this lesson and you'll know the answer, because Hannibal makes this his life pursuit. Hannibal Barca launches the insane invasion plan that has inspired so many other military leaders in history. If we could have known to watch this from the beginning, it would have been quite an amazing feat just to even cross through Spain. There is resistance. There were Romans he had to deal with in Spain already. He's got African elephants going with him and all the troops. Like, you have to think, like, where are you going? Are you trying to invade? And then through the Pyrenees Mountains. Like, that is difficult. You don't take troops through the mountains. But then the Rhone River. in what we would call France. This is the Gallic, the Celtic areas, Rhone River. And the Romans even knew that this was happening. Somehow Hannibal was able to slip past the Romans and slip off into the mighty Alps. The Alps was a natural fortress. Well, it is a natural fortress. Switzerland's in the Alps. And you know Switzerland, but no one invades Switzerland. No one invades through the Alps. And as you come down the Alps on the south side, that's Italy. Hannibal isn't no one. He is the Roman stress test, the Roman Republic stress test. How good is this Roman Republic machine? Like, it's been going on for a few hundred years now. It's time for a major challenge. And this is when I point out to the class, kids, the United States of America has only been around as long as the Roman Republic at the point that Hannibal crosses the Alps. As a point to ponder, has the United States faced an enemy like that? Someone that is that extreme? I don't call it desperate. Do you call it desperate? Put it in the chat. Crossing the Alps is only half of the nightmare that you would experience if you're on the other side. Hannibal crossing the Alps with elephants is a nightmare if you're on the other side. It's also a nightmare for these elephants. It's a 16-day invasion. And to me, that's incredible. Like, if you're on the winning team, this is not a nightmare. This is an early struggle, a challenge. But coming down the other side of the Alps, even though it's been just, 10, 11, 12 days, people are starving, frostbitten. The elephants have nothing to eat at all. And as you descend down, there's not, a lot of roads or ski lifts. There's a narrow mule path that had been carved by the locals, the side of the cliff. But as you come around the corner, a landslide, a rock slide is destroyed about 300 yards of that path, 3 football fields. So in an attempt to detour, Hannibal realizes an army has no other options. He kind of marches back a little bit, realizes they're stuck, and looking at this broken stretch, sets up camp. We got to keep moving. We're freezing. What would you do at this point? Because, food, cold, like everything, the elephants, you're above the tree line, by the way. When I go skiing, getting above the tree line puts you into this kind of extra extreme condition. Hannibal does something that only a strong leader would come up with. He fixes the road. He orders his men, the sick ones, the healthy ones, like, we got to do this, guys. Rebuild the 300 yards of road, this alpine mule path, and we got to do it by hand. Get your picks out, get the stones. They work in relays under Hannibal's constant supervision. He's there, he's watching, he's encouraging. And after 1 day of backbreaking labor, the path is barely good enough for the cavalry and the pack animals to cross over. What does Hannibal order? Go. Those groups, cavalry, pack animals, get down below the tree line, get to a camp, get to the pastures, get to food. Okay, makes sense, but the elephants are still stuck, completely famished. They're too heavy to walk. They're just too weak. Massive. This is a huge risk. Can't cross. The Numidian cavalry takes one for the team. They stay behind. The Numidian cavalry keeps working, and 3 more days to get the path wide enough to reinforce it, to shore up the edges with stone, and 3 more days of labor just to get the elephants across what's worth 3 football fields. Hannibal's leadership helps us understand why. Standing on a frozen cliff for 4 days, 5 days, convincing these starving men to move rocks so that these struggling elephants, dying elephants, can cross to invade a country that does not know we're coming. Hannibal knows. It'll be a surprise. That's what crossing the Alps, that's what with elephants, it's a surprise. Nobody would expect it. That's Hannibal. And just consider, what kind of modern threat would that be like? Oh, and if you've studied history in South America, 1819, Simón Bolívar crossed the Andes, and he was inspired by this surprise, powerful attack. For Bolivar, it was successful. Is this going to work? Do you know this story already? The elephants cross, they descend as Hannibal races to join the vanguard. It's 3 more days as they march down the pasture line and into the plains where you can relax a little bit. This is the Po River Valley. Look at the map. What is the Po River Valley? It's the Piedmont. It's coming down out of the Alps. A beautiful area. Italy is so beautiful. And the home of Nebbiolo grapes, a very unique and interesting grape. The Barolo wine industry, one of the best in the world. The Winter Olympics aren't far. Just go a little bit to the northeast. Swing by the Winter Olympics. But Hannibal's not going to do that because he's got... Oh, maybe he'll talk to the Celtic tribes. Why are there Celtic tribes here? Well, the Etruscans... further to the south have already blended and assimilated with the Romans. The Celtics, not so much. The Celtics, we'll call them Gauls in a minute, and some Celts will make it all the way to Ireland. But they're there, and they're waiting. They're not going to get invaded. Hannibal doesn't arrive and say, I am now your conqueror. What does he do? He arrives as an ally. Friend, Celts, you have 2 choices. Join Rome's greatest enemy, Hannibal, or you face Rome alone. The Celts chose Hannibal. And Hannibal descended the rest of the way through the Piedmont, through the Alps, with 26,000 men. A handful of elephants. They lost a lot. It was costly. But now we have an army of Celts, the Gauls, eager for revenge on the Romans. Rome had just finished unifying Italy. They thought things were going so well, but now they have a new war coming right to their doorstep. When Hannibal arrives in northern Italy with his troops, Rome fields 4 consular armies, consuls-led armies, and that could be 80,000 soldiers at this point. Romans think this will be over quickly. They never lose land battles. June 21st, 217 BC. The location is the beautiful Lake Trasimene. Lake Trasimene. That is kind of close to Tuscany and Umbria, and so that makes it north of Rome. The geography of Italy is important because there is a mountain range running through the middle of Italy. So Hannibal believes this will be his way around as he approaches Rome, as he decides what's the attack plan, and positions himself above in the hills above Lake Trasimene, as you can see here, off to the left, high off to the left. Now, the Roman consul, one of the consul leaders, Gaius Flaminius, do you like saying Flaminius? Flaminius has been in the chase of Hannibal, and I'm skipping over a lot of other struggles and battles. Flaminius is a populist. He's on the side of the people. The people love leaders like this. He can be kind of impetuous. What is impetuous? He can act kind of rashly and quickly. He's hungry for glory. Hungry for glory, because that's what the populace, the people, love, the story of winning and glory. He wants to defeat Hannibal before his other consul. Remember, there's always 2 consuls before that other guy arrives. takes the credit, shares the credit. He marches his 25,000 men into a steep-sided gorge along the lakeshore. Let's look again at the shape of that northern eastern side. And as you go further in, it's a narrow passageway. Beautiful lake. This area for him to kind of cross and chase Hannibal. He doesn't know where Hannibal is, where they would have been hiding, and now the fog rolls in. I left the fog out of this video footage, but you put it in and picture a thick, eerie mist that blankets the valley floor. Hangs low. The Romans are marching into this thick whiteout. They can't even see the end of their column. They're marching. They can't see up into the hills. What's up in the hills? Why would they need to look up into the hills? And wouldn't Flaminius have sent scouts ahead into the hills? Well, I hope that Hannibal's army isn't hiding in the hills above the fog where they can look down and see everything happening. They are, by the way. They're sitting in clear sunlight, watching the Romans march directly into the kill zone. What is a kill zone? This is a choke point area that as soon as we can get the troops far enough in, there's no way backwards, and the only way forwards is continue in the choke point. Hannibal waits. He has a perfect view. The fog is helping. Wait until the entire Roman column is strung out along the lake shore. And then one single trumpet echoing through the hills. Must have been terrifying to the Romans because that was not a Roman trumpet. The mist comes alive almost like an evil force against the Romans as the Carthaginian heavy infantry and the Celts, the Gallic warriors, and the Numidian cavalry, they come crashing down those slopes above the lake, and the Romans are caught in marching order. Their shields are on their back. Their weapons are sheathed. There's no battle line, no formations. They're not ready for doing anything other than chaotic whatever. The Romans are pinned against the water in this choke point. Thousands are being driven into the lake now. What happens with troops and 40 or 50 pounds of equipment as they wade out into the water, the mud? They're getting weighed down. They're drowning. 15,000 men are butchered right there within the 3 hours. The consul Flaminius is spared by a Gallic nobleman who recognized him. This is going to turn into something of an execution style event because of the choke point. And the haunting part of this, the Roman vanguard, about 6,000 elite troops at the front, were able to break through and up the hill. They fight their way to a vantage point where they can look at the summit and the sun shining as it burns off the mist. They look down into the valley. The water, this lake is red. It's literally blood colored because of the total annihilation of their comrades. They stood as a witness to the destruction to tell the story of their own army. The Romans now are in shock. The Senate hears about this. The Senate doesn't panic. Consider what it would be like to be a senator. Now look at a map again. That's not that close to Rome. What could the Senate do? Well, they appoint a dictator. Remember the lesson about dictator. Now it's Fabius Maximus. I hope he's a good guy. I hope he's skilled, can quickly solve this problem. Fabius Maximus does something very radical. Nothing. He does nothing. Not exactly nothing, but this is the famous Fabian strategy. Look at what's been happening. Hannibal is fighting us and winning. He's killing us. He's wiping out large population segments. We can't keep going on like this. So we need to not fight Hannibal. Dictator Fabius Maximus says, we will not fight. This is the Fabian strategy of patience. And here's where it's not really nothing. He shadows the enemy. He's constantly moving in a parallel position, shadowing the enemy. The enemy always knows they could get into a fight at any time, but as soon as they maybe set up, get ready, Fabian strategy is to retreat. What would it be like on the chessboard? What is the Fabian strategy like in the games you play, where you basically show your patience and slowly do what? What are you doing? You're denying supplies, energy. You're making it boring. You're making it expensive. You're making it difficult because you will refuse to engage and actually fight. And there's only so much food, and they burn the crops. They're gonna Fabian strategy with all the wonderful crops, olive trees, fruit trees, everything gets destroyed so that you're not feeding the enemy. Now, Fabius, the cunctator, not the dictator, the delayer. He is a coward, according to some, because they want to win. They want the glory, like the Greek Kleos. Remember Kleos? They want revenge for Lake Trasimene. And so against Fabius's advice, they force the system to override the safety protocols and the circuit breakers. And then by 216 BC in August, the plain of Cannae in southern Italy, near Puglia, near like a flat area. Here's some of the beautiful terrain around it. Rome had assembled the largest army in its history. They went for 86,000 men, 16 legions of fighters. The Senate's message is clear. End it. We want the showdown battle that the Romans can win. Hannibal is down to like 50,000 troops. So he's outnumbered, but he's Hannibal. In the morning of the battle, the winds start blowing from the west across these fields, and Hannibal positions his army facing west. The Romans advance into the wind with dust and grit blowing directly into their eyes. So it's just a strategic advantage. These little things add up. But now watch what Hannibal does. He deploys his infantry into a convex crescent shape, bulging toward the Romans. The convex center that he places the weaker Celtic and Spanish troops. Sorry, guys. You know, the better, stronger, elite African heavy infantry is held back in the flanks. Why would he do that? When the Romans see this bulge, they think he's overextended. It's a trap. No, they don't think it's a trap. They just try to smash the center bulge. So the Romans charge to the center bulge, and the entire massive block of 86,000 men pushes forward. They hit the Celtic and Spanish center. The center buckles. The line goes from convex to concave, from a bulge to a V, and the Romans think that they are winning. As they surge deeper and deeper into the center, they're funneling themselves into a trap. Then somebody might say it's a trap, because the African heavy infantry on the flanks pivots inward. They attack the Roman flanks. Simultaneously, the Carthaginian cavalry, having routed the Roman horse, strikes the Roman rear. Roman army is now surrounded and compressed and panicked. It's so tight that soldiers can't even lift their swords, their arms to defend themselves. They can't turn around. They can't retreat. It's not a battle at this point. Mechanical slaughter. 500 deaths per minute. Every single minute. 500 of these guys die for the next 6 hours. So 48,000 men, up to 70,000 Romans are dying in this battle. It's like Hiroshima death toll. This is a major defeat, sword by sword being inflicted on what's left of these young Romans. My students would be shocked at this point. We're done. They're confused because they think aren't we studying Romans for like a long time? Rome's not going to surrender. They are getting wiped out, aren't they? When the Senate meets, they ban the word peace. They refuse to ransom the prisoners. They have to debase the currency. What is debasing the currency? All the previous metal and their methods, they created a coin, the denarius. So this is the beginning of the Roman denarius coin. Essentially, it's the same as the drachma, as the shekel, and that will pay for more soldiers. And they arm 8,000 slaves, criminals. They send them off to war. This is the obstinatio. Obstinatio, the obstinate refusal to break. The state becomes a total war machine. Somebody has to lose this, right? And losses are mounting. The young Roman officer at Cannae is Publius Cornelius Scipio. I've heard it pronounced both ways. But Scipio survives, and he watches. Scipio now is the future, the new update to the plan. And he will reverse engineer not the ship, but the tactics that Hannibal's using. Good. Somebody's got to do this if you're on the Roman side. In 210 BC, Scipio is sent to Spain. And long story short, he captures New Carthage. So they're attacking Carthage while Carthage, Hannibal, is attacking Italy, taking the battle back closer to their home. He trains his legions to operate better with some of the strategies, the way Hannibal was moving, better movements. And by 206 BC, he has used Hannibal's own tactics successfully, and he is winning. He takes Spain. That's where Hannibal gets all his money. That's where the Carthaginians mint all their silver. But Scipio realizes something very crucial. The center of the gravity isn't really Hannibal's army in Italy. It's the support base in Africa. It's time to go to Africa. 204 BC, Scipio invades Africa and forces the Carthaginian Senate to recall Hannibal. What is recall? Send messengers. I would love to know how these messengers actually made it in. And we kind of skipped the part about why didn't Hannibal ever directly attack Rome? I used to just tell my kids, well, the guys with the battering rams forgot to bring their equipment. They couldn't defeat the Roman walls. And I think there's some truth to that. But Hannibal and his troops have been there for well over 10, 13, 14 years, laying waste to Italy. There's a lot of damage. There's huge cost as they have burned the olive trees that take a decade before they can bear fruit. And they could live for thousands of years. It's such a shame. All of the farms, so much devastation after, 16 years, is it, in Italy? Hannibal has to go home. He's been recalled to defend and defeat Scipio, because Scipio brings the battle to Zama in 202 BC. Hannibal fields 80 war elephants. Again, with these elephants and this infantry that he's got, Scipio commands the Roman legions and now his superior friends, the Numidian cavalry, to support the better tactics that he's learned from Hannibal, so that this battle at Zama, unlike Cannae, is going to deliver a victory for the Romans. The Roman cavalry, when it strikes Hannibal's rear, that is the end of the Carthaginian army, kind of the way it worked in the opposite back in Cannae. Hannibal flees to Carthage, and then he tells the Carthaginian Senate to surrender. That's the end of the Second Punic War. Carthage is stripped of all. Oh, yeah. So what do? What do they have to pay? They lose the war. Carthage is stripped of all their overseas territories. Like, this is really huge. When you look at the map of the authority that Rome now has, they've got all of it that the Carthaginians once had. They're forbidden to make the war without Roman permission, if they have a trade dispute. And they've got to pay now 10,000 talents over the next 50 years. Rome has won. Hannibal is disgraced. What could possibly happen next? Well, Rome is essentially now a new empire. They receive tribute, payments, control of the trade routes. We never called the Roman Empire an empire until after the death of Julius Caesar and his son Augustus takes power, Octavian. But technically, look at the map. Rome is no longer just a group of friendly trade partners. Rome's influence is so strong, it acts like an empire, and we see it. Like, where did Africa get its name? The continent of Africa came from the region of Africa where Carthage was. It was just part of Tunisia, but Africa. And then Scipio even takes the name Scipio Africanus as a flex for his, victory. And Asia is the same way. Asia, the name goes back to Greek times, but, and by the way, the Greeks would have called it Libya. They had a Greek colony of Cyrene in Libya, so they were calling the continent Libya. So the fact that the Romans win this is how the Latin name Africa sticks on that continent, and it just shows you the direction we're headed. This lesson has been significant. It's been costly for the Romans. There's a lot of, you're going to hear about this in some future lessons about what the cost really is, but you see the Roman Republic, and they fought this out. The timeless truth is that their system, their constitution, their determination, it's working. It's paying off. They've held off a significant guy named Hannibal. Hannibal at the gates. Hannibal crossing the Alps. Rome was able to overcome that struggle. And Rome's refusal to surrender has hardened them into a total war machine that works, that can defeat Hannibal forever and become the dominant Mediterranean empire. Thank you for taking the time to learn something that matters in all of history, which includes your history, because kingdoms rise and fall, power fades, but virtue endures.